Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is Adam Goodman, partner at Ballard Partners. Adam, thanks so much for coming on once again.
Great to be with you. Big night coming up tonight.
Big night, historic night to say the least. Tonight is the first presidential debate between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. It is the first time a former president and an incumbent are facing off. So, what are you expecting tonight?
Absolutely everything, right? Anything can happen. This is live theater, right? And when you have live theater as opposed to cutting to tape, uh, anything is theoretically kind of in play. And we have two very veteran debaters. I mean, these are two that have been on this stage before. So that gives you a sense of maybe predictability. But then when you put Donald Trump on any stage, you take that off the map. Anything bloody could happen here. And I think this is going to get a very big audience. You know, the record, Brittany, is on television to this point is 81 million. That was the first debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. It may or may not reach that television number, but the overall number, because of streaming, is going to be way beyond that, I believe. I think this will be the most watched debate in American history.
I have to agree with you because many people are treating this like a Super Bowl tonight. I was invited to a few watch parties, and these aren't from my friends who are political junkies. These are just everyday Americans who want to tune in and see what's happening. And I want to talk about the rules here and talk about who's it's going to advantage, in your opinion. Here are the rules laid out by CNN. It starts at 9 p.m., 90 minutes long, 2 commercial breaks with no studio audience. They will be standing the whole time. Their mics will be muted except when it's their turn to speak. They get a pen, a pad of paper, bottle of water, nothing else, no notes, no props. Who is this benefiting, Trump or Biden?
It benefits both of them for different reasons, right? Depending on what you're talking about. So the mic that's turned off after every response to a question, I think it actually advantages Donald Trump, because you saw what happened in the first debate against Joe Biden in 2020. That didn't go so well when at that point President Trump was going at it. No studio audience. That advantages President Biden because Trump is the master of the rally, the master of feeding off of an audience. The two moderators, the two CNN moderators, there is a clear perception that CNN kind of leans left of center, and that this would be more difficult possibly for the former president, Donald Trump. It actually may advantage him because those two moderators know that if they go over what is perceived to be the line of fairness with the audience, that they're going to get it and probably get it right there live from Donald Trump. And we've seen that kind of engagement before. I always go back to 2012 when Newt Gingrich was running for the Republican nomination. It was a South Carolina debate. No one knew who was going to come out of the primary yet. And John King asked his first question of Newt Gingrich was a question he asked about his marriage. And Newt Gingrich fired back at John King. You could see King thrown back in his chair. And a lot of people reacted negatively. So would Donald Trump engage with one or both of the moderators from CNN tonight? You know, my money is on it at some point. So maybe that's an advantage. And the last thing I'll say is the 90 minutes standing. Joe Biden shows energy tonight. And I think everyone is saying, well, what does he have to do? He's got to show that. He's got to show he can hang in it for 90 minutes. That could advantage Joe Biden just by getting through that 90-minute examination.
As you said, these are both veteran debaters. You also said it's the most important debate potentially ever. So how are they preparing? Because while this might move the needle, I mean, if there is a misstep, that could potentially upend this race.
So let's talk about a little piece of trivia. The question is, who won the last 5 presidential debates? The 3 between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, the 2 between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. According to public polls published after each of those 5 debates, you know what the answer is? Not Donald Trump. He actually lost all 5 on the scorecards of the pollsters after the debate, and yet seemed to score very well with the American public, certainly in 16. So Grading these things is really kind of perilous, but I think we're going to know who did well tonight when it's all said and done, based on our expectations of two people, Brittany, we actually feel we know very well.
I want to now move to Donald Trump, though, more specifically. And I want to try to see if you can get inside his head tonight of how he's going to show up on that stage. When he was in Philly over the weekend, he floated to the audience, "Should I be nasty to Joe Biden?" The audience reacted positively to that. We haven't seen Donald Trump, though, on a debate stage. He refused to debate this primary season, but he's known for his vicious nicknames: Crooked Hillary, Little Marco, Low Energy Jeb. Do you think he is going to be nasty tonight, and would that benefit him at all? Or do you think he's going to take a more measured approach?
Have no idea. I mean, what should he do and what he will do, right? What he should do, I think, is show maybe a more disciplined approach to a number of things, because that's a side of Donald Trump, I think, that maybe is not well established. I think that would hold him in good stead. With that said, though, Brittany, got to be himself. I mean, the last piece of advice you would give either contender tonight: be yourself. Really do it the way you feel is natural and real to you, as opposed to having to answer question number 37 on the test, accurately and well. It's not about that ultimately. It's, does he look genuine? Do I believe what he is saying? Those are the markers that are going to determine winners and losers tonight. That is a marker that Donald Trump, who, by the way, if nothing else, Brittany, he knows what it means to be on stage. He knows what it means to generate audience, to appeal to audience. That's all his days on The Apprentice and other things he's done have really taught him to appreciate that. I think he's going to keep that front and center in his mind as he performs.
That's a really interesting point, because this is a historic moment in the sense of, we had 4 years of Donald Trump's presidency. We're almost at the 4-year mark of a Biden presidency. So the American people understand their policies. They understand how these leaders govern. So do people care as much about the substance of their answers, how they're going to answer, opposed to, hey, both of them look mentally fit, both of them have good jobs, I can see their personalities more? What matters most here tonight?
I think the last comment you made matters more to the president. It matters more to Joe Biden that he looks together, lucid, and sharp for 90 minutes. It matters more to Donald Trump that he presses the case. He's the challenger, right? Generally, what challengers do in campaigns is they take on the status quo. The status quo is President Biden and the Democrat Party. And there's a lot to play with. In fact, there's very little. That's where the big advantage comes in. Going back to your question from before, Donald Trump should press the attack on, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And across the board, from the economy and immigration to the existential threats abroad, you got to feel he's got all those advantages. What Joe Biden's got to do, the president, he's got to defend his record. He's got to defend the problems we're having on the southern border. He's got to defend the feeling of nervousness Americans feel about going paycheck to paycheck. He's got to defend that things are going to be okay and settled in all sorts of conflagrations around the world. The burden of proof is on the president tonight to give compelling and convincing answers to that. All Donald Trump has to do is raise the question.
So how do you think President Biden is preparing? Because he was the one to initially call the debate, and then Donald Trump did agree rather swiftly.
Right. I think Donald Trump even just said, I want even more debates after tonight. We'll see how he feels in the morning. I think that the president has got to be careful of one thing. If I were to give him one piece of advice, do not take credit for things that people in America believe don't merit credit, at least not yet. And I go with Bidenomics. You know how he's been pushing Bidenomics and it's been a success. What he should say is simply, look, I came into office, a lot of things were coming against us, COVID in particular. We've started to turn the ship. We've started back on that proverbial comeback trail. I'm very encouraged about where we're heading, but we're not where we need to be yet. Versus, it's all done. We've done a great job. Aren't you enjoying Bidenomics? If he does that, and anything having to do with the southern border or the conflict in Gaza or situation with the Chinese, the Russians, etc., I think that people are not going to believe what he is saying or not want to feel that what he is saying is true. And yet to this point in this campaign, it seems, and this is, by the way, it's not just the Joe Biden. A lot of people in public office do the very same thing. They try to defend something that people feel is not completely defensible. If he doesn't cross that line and is more humble, I think he could score points. If he does what he's been doing, I think people are just going to shake their head and say, we don't buy it.
Low-hanging fruit for President Biden is calling Trump a convicted felon. So,
Right.
A, do you think he should do that? B, how does Trump respond to that?
Well, Trump, of course, will take on the legal system. At least the legal system is practiced in the court case in New York, where the prosecutor, the judge, everyone, he's going to say, or we're kind of in the bag to begin with. That's how he's going to deal with it. In terms of the president, he will mention that. But if he dwells on that, I think he has to worry about what are the comebacks. Hunter Biden, right? What do you do about him? And by the way, that's a very uncomfortable place for Joe Biden to be, not just as president, but as a dad. How do you respond? And he's been talking about it a little bit, Brittany, in the press. How do you respond to, should your son go to jail?
That's a great question. I mean, how should he respond? Because if President Biden invokes Hunter Biden, says, wait, your son's a convicted felon too, I mean, A, that is deeply personal. Hunter Biden's not running for president. We know Joe Biden, as painted in the press, as he said before, is a loving father, has deep love for his son, had a response where he said, I'm not going to pardon my son, but I do love my son. I am proud of him. What is the response that President Biden should have in his back pocket if and probably when Hunter Biden's brought up?
You just said it, Brittany. You couldn't have said it better. That is his response. And it starts with being a dad. And if he could just kind of let his hair down a little bit and just feel that moment and be a dad for 30 to 60 seconds, I think the American public will respond positively. Look, Joe, regardless of what you think about the legal aspects of that case against Hunter Biden, it seems like it's clear from all the evidence that we've seen in the public domain that he's guilty of the offense. It doesn't mean you don't have compassion for someone that obviously has struggled with drug addiction for a very, very long time. And if as dad, he responds to that question, I think, again, he could score points. And I think Donald Trump, if I were advising the former president, I would just let that be.
President Biden, when we saw him at the State of the Union, once again, the bar seemed by the media, by Republicans, set so low. Can he go out there and deliver a speech? And by those standards, he achieved that. He went out there. He seemed to have high energy. He was around shaking everyone's hand at the end. Do you think, what does a win look like for him tonight?
For Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
For Joe Biden, we saw the State of the Union address, and the same questions are being asked about whether or not, over 60 to 75 minutes, the president could hold forth. I think he did a very good job there in terms of looking, energetic, looking, kind of dialed in. So if he does the same thing tonight, I think that's a score for the president, which is kind of silly when you think about it, that we would give him a partial win just on the fact he could get through 90 minutes. I mean, forget his policies, forget what he's doing or not doing to advance the ball in the interests of every American and of the world. We're thinking, can he stand for 90 minutes? That's kind of where we are.
And what does a win for Donald Trump look like? Because as we've talked about, I mean, he can go two avenues. He can go the Donald Trump route of the nicknames and the comments and the potential nastiness that people think is beneath the dignity of the office. He could take the more professional route. What's a win look like for him?
Donald Trump's going to be Donald Trump. So what we've seen is what we're going to get to some degree. The question is, what message is he delivering tonight, Brittany? And the message he should deliver is the one we talked about 15 minutes ago. Are you better off? And he's got so much material to play with. And I feel the president has very little in comparison to come back with. If he does that, I think he scores the win, both substantively and in the debate. And I think ultimately elections are all about the future. They're never really about the past. It's who can take me forward, who can lead us forward in a way that I can support. And in that regard, the challenger, when you look at 2 out of 3 Americans down the mouth about just about everything, the challenger absolutely has the edge and the advantage. The score, the win tonight for Donald Trump is to remember that.
This debate is unusually early. We're in June, election days in November. Donald Trump right now is up by a hair in national polls, but really it's anyone's game here. So how much will this matter come November, and how much stock are voters putting into this? Will this move the needle?
Well, it seems early, but as one of my partners at Ballard Partners pointed out, the ballots are going out right past Labor Day. So we're not that far from the actual vote starting to happen in America. With that said, think about it. After this debate, you have the sentencing in New York, you have the sentencing in Delaware, you have the Republican convention, you have the Democratic convention, you've got all sorts of other non-political events. Believe it or not, there are things happening in the world that aren't political. All those are going to happen before we even get to Labor Day. So will this matter? I think it's important in terms of maybe setting the bar where this race could go. Will it ultimately determine winners and losers in the fall? I don't think so. I think we know these two contenders very, very well. I think a lot of the impressions are already baked in. We're looking for reinforcement, especially among the soft leaners, one way or the other. A reinforcement is something we're already feeling. In that way, maybe the debate is important, but I don't think with everything to come afterwards, it's going to be remembered as the transformational moment for mankind.
Wow, we do have a jam-packed summer. We've got a historic night tonight. I'm excited to watch. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it for sure. I know we'll be talking as the summer progresses. Adam Goodman, thanks for joining me.
Great to be with you, Brittany.